I've clicked on the Global Tropical Overview for August the 22nd, 2023. As is always the case in these videos, the thoughts expressed here are mine alone, and when making decisions ahead of any tropical cyclones, look towards your local weather office, local emergency management, and local tropical cyclone warning center. We've got still a very active Atlantic today. Just going from west to east, we have Tropical Depression Harold here over South Texas. This became a tropical storm last night and intensified some to winds of about 50 to 60 miles per hour as it came towards the South Texas coastline and brought some storm surge, heavy rainfall, and strong winds of tropical storm force. Now, that heavy rainfall is continuing, and that will continue to be if Harold's main threat as it continues moving westwards here. You can see all that cloud cover there over South Texas, and it is good. We do need to get rid of some of the drought here in northern Mexico and Texas and even portions of the southwest where the moisture will be heading, but it has come down pretty heavy in a lot of areas here in South Texas and into northern Mexico, and we have seen some flooding issues, and that will be a concern for the next couple of days. That's the remnants of Harold move northwest. We have the system now off the coastline of Mexico that we'll be monitoring over the next several days. This could develop into a tropical cyclone before it comes towards the coastline of Mexico. I'm not really going to be going into detail on this today, but tomorrow I might, as the system does appear to be a threat to Mexico. It might come ashore as maybe a tropical storm if it does form. We have Tropical Storm Franklin here in the Central Caribbean. This is forecast to now move north into Hispaniola, and I'll be going into detail on this shortly. Gert is no more. You can really not pick out much of anything from Gert, maybe a weak circulation there east of the Leeward Islands. But as I said yesterday, despite it being so close to the Leeward Islands, most of the adverse impact is being brought by Franklin, and you can see that here quite well on the visible satellite imagery. We also have what was Emily here in the central Atlantic, and this will be moving northwards over the coming days and might have a chance to redevelop in the central Atlantic, but will not be impacting any land areas. And we have finally Invest 92L here moving northwest across the Atlantic. And now, compared to yesterday, this is looking more and more unlikely to develop. You can see it is sort of similar to Emily. It is sort of broad in nature, and there's also a lot of dry air here. North and west of the system. That's probably going to keep it at bay for now. And models really don't do much with this, much more at all. You can see this general northwestern motion. It's forecast to continue. And models do actually have this tracking throughout the central Atlantic as a tropical wave under the influence of the Azores Ridge. And eventually, models actually have this just getting absorbed by Franklin or something else happening here. But overall, development is not looking too likely with 92L anymore. Now, that's a lot of systems, but we're going to, for today, only go in depth on Tropical Storm Franklin, as that is the current land threat that we have across both the East Pacific and the Atlantic. You can see on the visible satellite today, it's a bit of an odd picture, and this has been a very odd storm to track over the past couple of days. If we look in the low-level cloud field, we have a low-level center here. And this looks to be maybe the center of Franklin. Now, if you look as well in the low-level cloud field, we have westerly winds on the southern side of this convection, maybe indicating that this was a dying out low-level circulation, or maybe a mesovortice of some sort, and maybe we have a center of circulation forming under here. This would be closer to the mid-level center, so that would make some sense to see. Now, we have had a recon plane flying in through the storm today, and I might be able to see it soon. There will probably be an updated graphic of this, and I will come back to this, as I have not seen obviously the data that they have put out from the recon plane yet for this part. I'm really interested to see this because you can see here's that low-level center we just picked out on visible satellite, but this is where we generally were seeing those westerly winds, and there is no really well-defined center found by recon so far. You can see there is a little bit of a wind shift by the looks of things, and we do have easterly winds so far on from the recon plane as they're diving south. So this will be interesting to see, and I'll check back here in a couple minutes to see what recon does find. But I will give credit to the European model. It does deserve credit here. It has done well with Franklin's intensity. The GFS and the hurricane models such as HWRF and HAFS, they have been today forecasting the system to intensify on approach to the Dominican Republic. And they had actually shown the centers being more coupled, and that's why they showed that intensification. Now, the European has stuck on the idea of the centers staying decoupled like they are now, and that appears to be what's happening today. And I will give credit to the European. It has done well with intensity so far. Now, in terms of track, it has shifted more towards the National Hurricane Center forecast cone, which is similar to the GFS track right now, coming into central Hispaniola rather than coming west and coming into Haiti. So we have had that correction from the European model, but right now the European seems to be the most trustworthy model, at least for the time as it comes north through Hispaniola. Now, not much intensification, I would say, is too likely at this point, unless the system can really get its act together here. This type of disorganized structure is not something that you want to see for a tropical cyclone. In fact, the National Hurricane Center even talked about how disorganized this system is and how unhealthy this system is. And they even noted that this system, there is question if this is actually even a tropical cyclone at this time. But regardless of tropical cyclone or not, and whatever intensity that the system comes in, the main threat here for Hispaniola is all this heavy rain that is still accompanying the system. And this will be pushing into the mountainous terrain, and we could be seeing significant rainfall here. And that could easily lead to flash flooding issues and mudslide issues. And there is great concern of high rainfall totals that could near a foot of rainfall. I believe that's about 200, maybe 300 millimeters of rainfall. I'm going to quickly check the recon data, see if we have that updated information. And no, we don't, but I'll go to the GFS just to show you the differences between the European and the GFS. So you can see the GFS has, by tonight, a more healthy tropical cyclone here with a more coupled center overall. But if I go to the mid-level moisture plot on the GFS, you can see that initialization, and well, actually, let me go back to earlier today. The model has the mid-level center and the low-level center coupled here, and we can see, at least right now, that it appears that that is not the case, unless we do have a low-level center forming here underneath this convection. But if this is the low-level center for Franklin, this is a decoupled structure. And overall, I would side more with the European here, which shows, maybe some development as it gets right towards the coastline, but other than that, nothing too significant. Now, as we get towards and after Hispaniola, Franklin will likely struggle quite a bit after Hispaniola. It is likely going to traverse the highest terrain that Hispaniola has to offer, and that will likely disrupt it heavily. Now, afterwards, the environment does still look pretty favorable. You can see there's this upper trough here over the Gulf of Mexico, and there's upper level ridging here over the Caribbean. And there might be some shear impinging upon the storm, but this doesn't appear too strong, and there is more of a divergent flow aloft, which may support the system to intensify after Hispaniola, or in what may be a more likely scenario now, redevelop, as it is entirely possible that we lose whatever circulation Franklin has or will gain as it comes through Hispaniola. And now this is the, well, actually, I wanted to show you the upper level pattern just before we go to the 500 millibar flow. This is by day 5, and you can see as the system meanders here, the European still does show, and the GFS does as well. In fact, most models do show redevelopment or some intensification if the system does stay active as a tropical cyclone after Hispaniola. And then eventually we start to see this turn northwest, and we start to get a more favorable upper level pattern here, and that may allow the system to intensify into a hurricane. If we are going to see Franklin become a hurricane, it's going to be after Hispaniola, not before. Like we said, may have been possible a couple of days ago when the system had first formed. And now this is a 500 millibar of height map from the European, and there are a few features here to pick out. We have this ridge here in the northern Atlantic, and we have this weakening trough here northeast of Bermuda. Now this trough is helping to pick Franklin up and draw it northwards, but this trough is also weakening. So you'll see as we go to Saturday, this ridge weaken, or sorry, this trough weakens, and now here's Franklin. There aren't really any big features to come and pick it up, so it just sort of sits here. We have this ridge here in the northern Atlantic, and this really is not able to pick up the storm like it will be able to in the future of the forecast. We also have this ridge here over the central United States. This is too far, and there really is not a big trough up north to come and pick up Franklin, at least at this part in the forecast. Now, as we get towards day 5, what you'll see is this ridge will be expanding southwest, and we'll also see troughing develop here in the Great Lakes and the Northeast. And both of these features will work together to pull the storm north. Now, there is uncertainty on exactly how far west and east, and I've said that so many times over the past couple of videos with Franklin. There's so much uncertainty on exactly how far west or east it is, and that does depict who gets what. If we have a storm going more west, we could get a storm tracking in between the United States and Bermuda, and then we could either get the system recurving or coming up towards Canada. Whereas if we had the system coming more easterly, we could have a storm get very close to Bermuda and then recurve, or maybe it comes into Canada too. There's a lot more uncertainty up north, as you can expect, as that is further out. But the point being that those in Bermuda really do need to watch this and stay tuned to the National Hurricane Center advisories for the latest information on Franklin. This does pose a threat to the island. Of course, it's not imminent right now, as there's so much uncertainty, as I just said, but it's something to watch. Now, if I play out the run on the European model, you can see this ridge here expanding this troughing build over the United States. And the European is on the idea of the system tracking generally in between the United States and Bermuda. Now, the GFS is a bit further east, and you'll see that here. Here's the hour 72. Here's that trough that's weakening. Here's that ridge, and here's some troughing that will soon develop over the Great Lakes and Northeast. And you can see as I go in time, we have this system getting pretty uncomfortably close to Bermuda here on the model. Now, this is also 7 days out, and you can just see, I can go 7 days out on the European as well. There's a bit of spread there. Alongside that, note the differences in the pattern aloft. The European has this ridge stronger, which might force the system further west. Alongside that, it has this general trough a little bit weaker. So that could help it stay a little bit further west, where the GFS has the ridge weaker and the trough stronger, which could have the system stay a little bit further east. These details will have to be ironed out over the coming days, but that's just something to keep in mind for Bermuda and even Canada as well. This system does pose a threat to you all, and Bermuda will be, the most closest in time. Now, if there's any good news with Franklin, it doesn't look like the system is going to threaten the United States at this time. I talked about a couple days ago how if there was a scenario where Franklin was far enough west and we had his upper low strong enough that the system could be pivoted right into or right towards the coastline of the United States. And the solutions that I'm seeing here from the European and the GFS, this does not appear strong enough, and also Franklin is a bit too far east, I'd imagine, for that type of scenario to play out. So I would say that this is not really all too likely of a scenario here. I'd say the most likely scenario overall is that the system will come north of Hispaniola and turn northeast, maybe bringing impacts as well to the Turks and Caicos Islands, and then we'll have it slowly move north of the Caribbean Islands for a couple of days before making a northward turn. Now, we'll have to closely watch exactly how far east the system drifts. That will be probably one of the really defining factors of how far east or west the system gets relative to Bermuda. Now, for those in Bermuda, my recommendation is just to monitor this system, make sure your hurricane preparedness kit is ready, and stay tuned to the Bermuda Weather Service and the National Hurricane Center for the latest information ahead of the storm. Now, before I close this off, I go to the National Hurricane Center forecast cone. I want to look at the recon data. Maybe we have found some sense of a low-level center there. We have some easterly winds here, and it sort of gets messy there on the recon data. So maybe we actually have something there, hopefully, that we can figure out where the center is of Franklin. But we'll have to figure that out. But point being, as I've said several times, this system is very disorganized and unlikely really to develop much. And I need to get to the National Hurricane Center forecast cone, as I made this right as the advisory came out. And you can see generally what I talked about taking shape. You can see that general northward motion here with a tropical storm warning in place from about the south coast of Haiti all the way through the entire coast of the Dominican Republic. And if the system does come a little bit further west, we might have a need for some tropical storm watches for northern Haiti. But keep in mind as well, there's also heavy terrain here, or high terrain rather, that will likely dissipate the system, or at least weaken it quite substantially. And tropical storm watches here as well in place for the eastern Turks and Caicos. Now, the National Hurricane Center keeps this as a tropical cyclone after Hispaniola, and that seems like a fair estimate right now. Again, it could go either way. And you can see this general turn towards the north, towards the latter half of the forecast. You can see the eastward and westward uncertainty here. You can see if the system is maybe a little bit more easterly, we could get a storm coming up closer to Bermuda, whereas the system is maybe a little bit further west. We could see a system tracking in between the United States and Bermuda. There's a lot of questions with Franklin, and those questions will not be answered until we actually get the system past Hispaniola. But that's all that I've got across the tropics today. Very packed video. Hopefully we'll be able to tone down the tropics, but it is getting towards peak season, so I don't see that happening anytime soon. But stay safe in Hispaniola as Franklin comes through. Thank you all for watching, and that's it for now.